everyone. This is Madeline Dale with the Chapter Goddess, and I have an amazing author for you guys to check out. We're going to be chatting about 3 of her books today. So, Miss Jan, go ahead and give us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Hi, I'm Jan Foster, and I write as Jan Foster. My books that I want to talk to you about are the Nature series, which is a mostly Tudor-based historical fantasy series. So I do have a prequel, Risking Destiny, which is set in the Viking times, for those of you that like that particular era. And that's a bit of a strange one, if you like. It's a good introduction to the world, but it's also a tragic romance. Whereas and it's a villain story as well. It's how the villain was made. But the main series is set over the century of Tudor rule in England and Scotland.
That is fascinating. And the covers are gorgeous. So it sounds like you've had to put a lot of thought into these characters in the world. Where did you begin with world building? Did you have to do a lot of research?
Well, I don't know if it's unusual for a historical fantasy author, but I start with the history. So I've always been a massive Tudor fan. I'm slightly obsessed with them, you might say. Always have intrigued me, and not just the royalty aspect, because of course a lot of people know about, Henry VIII and his 6 wives and all that sort of stuff, but actually what happened to the ordinary man during that period of time, because it was such a tumultuous century with so much discovery happening and so many changes that people had to go through, the ordinary person went through. I just find it really fascinating, and I like to ask the question, what if? So what if that happened? What if you disagree with that? And that's where the fantasy comes into it. So I research the history and then ask the questions, what if you were a fairy with wings living in that time, and you were an eternal being, and you had a long-term view of how this was all going to play out because you've lived already for 800 years. So, what would you, how would you view things? So that's where I start and how it kind of evolves as well.
That is pretty cool. So do your characters, does it follow the main, one main character throughout the series?
It follows 2 main characters. My books are written usually in multiple points of view, mostly 2. The 2 being Aoife, who is the main female character, and her husband Joshua.
Ooh.
In book 1, she starts off as Annabelle, but we soon discover that she's actually Aoife, and she's supposed to be a Fae princess. So, but she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to be at all. So yeah, those are the 2 main characters, and then there's a supporting cast, if you like, of other characters that feature throughout the series, and some of them are fae, some of them are witches, demons, vampires, etc., and they kind of start to feature in book 1, and their story, the whole story arc, curves over the whole century.
Very creative. I love it. I love all the different creatures and characters that you've come up with on this.
Well, they all have to live kind of hidden underneath that human layer. They have to live there without it being really acknowledged by the humans that they're there at all, which the vampires do with greater success than everyone else, quite frankly.
Nice. I'm excited about these books. I'm gonna have to check them out, for real. So go ahead and tell us what your writing schedule looks like. Do you have a writing schedule that you keep?
I have to fit my schedule in around several other things. I have a few other businesses. I am also a small business consultant. So I kind of, that pays the bills, if you like, the majority of the time. I also have 2 children who have their own schedules that I have to adhere to, really, quite religiously, I'm afraid. And then writing kind of just somewhere, just slots in around there. So my diary is pretty much, boom, that's assigned to business, that's assigned to work, that's assigned to writing, that's children time. So I have to be a bit organized about it all, which is fine, because before I was a writer, I was a project manager, so I'm pretty good at that sort of thing.
That's awesome, because I struggle with that myself, because as you're a mom, I also am a mom, and kids' schedules are pretty, you have to be pretty strict about things. Do you keep a virtual plan? I call mine a planner, yours is a diary. Do you keep a virtual one or a physical kind of paper one?
I have both. And the problem is I have to remember to update the physical one with the virtual one and vice versa, because otherwise things get missed. But the physical one is there as a kind of quick reference. Oh yeah, I've got to do that then. But also, if I didn't have my phone binging and telling me, right, you've got to do this meeting now, or you've got to take that phone call now, then I think I would be lost, to be quite honest with you, because it's so easy with writing. I don't know if you have this problem, but I literally can lose a day. Literally, my husband will come down and go, did you have lunch today? I'm like, oh, no, I'm kind of stuck in, the middle of this at present. My head's in a battle at present. So lunch, what's that? Yeah, that happens if I have a whole day bliss to write, which is wonderful. But other than that, I do have to set timers for myself. Like, okay, you've got an hour to do this. Blah, 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 blah.
Yes, timers are the best for things like that. Yes. Because I've found that I start setting timers more now than I did when my son was a little bit younger. Just because, like, it does get away from you. You sit down and do something,
it really does.
Yeah.
If you're absorbed in it and you're really kind of in the zone, and particularly for me, because I have to have absolute silence to write. I can't do that whole musical background chatter, anything like that. I've got to have silence because I'm really kind of in the zone. And I'm in history as well, which is, you've got to really think about it. You've got to visualize exactly what it was like and really get into it, which I can do. That's fine. That's not a problem to sort of slip into it dead easy. But slipping out of it or remembering to come out of it and back into the real world is sometimes a bit of a problem for me.
Yes, it is. No, I totally get it. For your characters with doing the various time, like, pieces for their clothing and whatnot, do you use anything for inspiration for that?
I have a lot of reference books, and Google and Wikipedia are very helpful. Pinterest boards I find really help. So at present, I'm actually working on a co-author project, which is pure historical thriller, actually. And I've, had to develop loads of Pinterest boards for us to kind of share ideas of what somebody might look like or what the street might look like. So that's kind of bringing a whole new dimension to writing, because it's not just me and in my head. It's actually got to discuss it and make sure that we both agree on that. For me, in terms of the characters and what they're wearing and things like that, I kind of I do have several visual sources of inspiration that I use, and a lot of reference books.
Nice. So with your schedule kind of being pretty much like you have to stick to certain things, do you find that you are more creative in the morning or the afternoon, or maybe like at night?
Well, it's funny. I like to think I'm more creative in the morning, but I think it's actually that I'm just more motivated in the morning. Kind of get up, kids to school, sit down, do what I've got to do, get it out of the way, and then I've got time to write. And I think that's more about motivation and just wanting to get on with being able to write rather than, a scheduled time, as it were. Everything has to fall into place.
Yeah. Do you feel like that pandemic messed with your creativity and everything?
It was a nightmare. Yeah. Yeah. My children did not take to homeschooling, shall we say. One of them did. He was 9, 10 at the time. He was pretty good, but my 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, she really couldn't cope, and it was very, very labor intensive and very stressful, and not great at all. And I found that I was getting so frustrated in the day because I wasn't able to use that time when I was very motivated and awake and had ideas to write, because I was dealing with children and trying to teach them stuff in a fun way, and trying to make it less kind of bland, to be quite honest with you. The schools were brilliant. They did send through lots of stuff, but it's not the same as, a teacher standing there and making it exciting and interesting. Okay, you just got to read stuff. And my daughter could not get her head around the fact that a teacher was in a TV screen.
Yes.
and it actually made it worse. It made it worse. So dealing with all of that really was a complete kibosh to my creativity. I really, really struggled with it, to be honest with you. So thank God they're back in school.
Yes, I totally get that. Because we actually, everything shut down for a little bit here. And my son was going, because he was still really young at the time, to a Mother's Day out. And it's like, okay, I was using that to spend a whole day writing. And then I did not have that. And it just was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm just not going to sleep at night when he's asleep now.
No, it was just frustration from the day that just spilled over into the evening. And you think, okay, writing is creative outlet. I can just let my frustration go. But you're just zapped by it.
Yeah.
Totally
you sit there and stare at the computer and it's like nothing.
Yep. Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. And worse yet, actually, the first book I published was the children's book, which you'll like this. I don't know if you can see it. It's a book about swimming lessons, and it was due to launch. Cute. Yeah, it is great. It's a great book. It's a fabulous book. It's a children's picture book about first experiences as part of a series that was going to happen about first experiences with different sports to try and encourage children. So it was all set to launch, and it was due to launch 7 days after we locked down here in England. And once a launch date's set, there's nothing you can do about it. Launch party cancelled, pool party cancelled, everything. And of course, nobody could go swimming because all the swimming pools were closed. And you couldn't go into school and talk about it. You still can't go into school and talk about it. So, yeah, it does very well at certain times of the year when people start swimming lessons. It does really well then, because that's its purpose. But not so much. And unfortunately, that series is kind of parked for the time being. Bless it.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. So with being a mom and a writer and a businesswoman and staying super busy, what do you do for self-care? Do you have a routine or something that's a go-to to help keep your mental clarity?
My idea of heaven is a lie-in with a cup of coffee and a book that's not a research book, that's an actual novel or a story or something like that I can just get lost in, because I need that. That for me is escapism. And I try and provide that with my books. That was really the kind of the emphasis that I wanted, was to provide people with an escape, because I need it. I need that, just to escape into someone else's world. I'll admit most of my extracurricular reading is Tudor or fantasy. But that's okay. I like that. I write in that world, so that's good.
And you want to keep reading stuff in that, because that, like, the whole book world is constantly changing and things are developing, and you stay in that. So I totally get that.
Yeah. And sometimes you've got to get out of the house, though. I do know that.
Yeah.
And my other idea of heaven is to escape to the cinema, where I can just completely lose myself in a film, because that's my background was film. So I do love a good film, and I do love a good cinema experience. You can't really beat that. So when they're open, that's where you'll find me, hopefully, one evening.
Yes, I haven't been in so long, and part of that's on me, because they're open again. I just, as a mom, it's hard to get away and have that time to yourself.
Yeah. It's difficult. And my husband, who is wonderful, but unfortunately works for an American company, which isn't a problem. It's great. We live in the UK though, so there's a time difference. So quite often he will work American hours. So we have to kind of schedule things like this, because it's gone 9 o'clock in the evening for me here. And I've already told him, you can't work tonight because you're putting the children to bed and dealing with everything like that. But quite often that doesn't happen, because he works for an American company. So he's working till sort of 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's just the way it is, just the way we roll. Different schedules.
I totally get that, because my husband and I are the same way, and his schedule is insane right now, and I'm just okay. So it's we see each other in passing, and I'm like, hey, I'll see you Saturday, and it's gonna be your turn to put our child to bed.
Who are you?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so it's crazy, and I feel like it's just been crazy
as well.
He does not. So he's actually been considered one of the essential workers, and they actually have had a lot of call-ins and stuff, because it's in the food business and stuff. And it's been crazy, especially with the way numbers are right now for us. It's so I'm okay, I'll see you Saturday. Maybe.
Oh, no.
I know it's been an adjustment, but we're good. We're getting it. We're hanging in there. It's so sad.
I think you just have to say there is an end in sight. I don't know where in sight it is, but there is an end in sight, and it is better than where we were 18 months ago.
Oh yeah,
That's the way I look
definitely.
at it.
Because I
You
feel
just have
like
to look.
it's kind of more under control, I
Yeah,
guess. So,
yes,
but
maybe. Yeah.
yeah.
There's hope.
Yes,
There's
definitely
always
hope.
hope. Yeah.
So with your writing career, what have you found to be the biggest struggle that you've faced?
Apart from childcare issues.
Yes.
um, the biggest struggle I face, I actually am not the biggest fan of marketing. I'll be honest with you. I have always shied away from anything salesy. I'll happily do marketing for businesses. I don't know why I can do that successfully. Um, and working for a business or being a consultant and doing sort of media consultancy, that sort of thing, I can do that, no problem. But somehow there's a mental block about selling myself and my products that I really struggle with. And also I find that the requirement these days to be very, very active on social media is such a time suck when you don't have a lot of time. So to get around that, I have a lot of scheduling. So try and mark out time. That's when I'm going to do marketing stuff, and try not to let it bother me that I'm not feeling like I don't do enough. I don't have enough of a social presence and that sort of thing. And that's a mental hurdle, really, because it's just a fairly shy person, I suppose, being quite reticent about going, hey, buy my books. I just, yeah. So I struggle with that mentally, but I'll get there. I'll get there.
Yes, and marketing
It's a
is
mental
really
hurdle.
hard. Yeah, no, it's rough. It's very time consuming. I'm with you on that. And the whole social
Yeah.
media thing, like I feel like there's more pressure to be more active. And yeah, there's just so many different apps out there now. It's like, oh,
yeah. You can literally spend all day being as active as they recommend you to be, and just don't have the time.
Oh, I know. I'm the same way. I've been trying to schedule post too, and like then I'm like, well, if somebody responds, like you struggle to like respond to their response.
I love it. I'd love to respond. I love to respond. That's great because it gives you a little notification that you can respond, and that's fantastic. I love interacting with readers.
Yes.
It's just doing the posts in the first place. Really, it's a different kind of creativity. And it's weird because I will do it for clients. I will do it for my business clients. I will say, right, we're going to have a whole January of talking about this in our media presence. And these are some ideas. And I can do that for them. But coming up with them for myself, boop.
Yes.
What's that dust ball roll? It's really hard.
I'm with you on that. And if you could share one piece of advice for a new author, what would it be?
Triumph. There's no triumph without both the try and the umph. And the other one, which was a piece of advice that was given to me very, very early on in my writing career, which I kind of never really, it's a sort of advice that is applicable to pretty much any job, I suppose, but the words are not going to write themselves. The only way that you do it is literally AIS, art in seat. You're not going to get it unless you just sit down and do it. They won't just magically appear. So it's like a mental thing you have to just accept. If I want to write a book, I have to sit down and actually write it. That's as easy and as hard as that sounds, but AIS is the way forward. And sometimes I have to kind of mutter that to myself when I'm feeling a bit kind of, well, do I do the mountain of washing or the cleaning or go shopping? Nope, not going to write the book that way. AIS, sit down, do it.
Yes. Okay. I'm totally going to adopt that now. I was like saying to myself, because I totally like sat down this morning. It's like, okay. And I did get a little bit down, like writing wise. And I was like, my brain was like, nope, I can't do this. But like coffee hadn't kicked in. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do some house cleaning. I'm behind. And like 2.5 hours later, I'm like, okay, I totally was going to go back and write some more.
Procrastination is not your friend.
No, it's
AIS.
not. No. AIS, I'm going to put that on a sticky note and put it on my wall.
Even if it's just like 100 words, that's 100 more words.
Yes.
That's the way you got to look at it. If that's all, even if it's utter rubbish. And believe me, there have been times when I have read back my work and gone, oh my word. I actually remember very significantly reading back my work, and I had written, he put that there. He put who? Put what? And why? And where? He put
where was
that
my
there.
brain?
That was my sentence that I had spent hours on.
Yep. It's always the small things like that too. So.
Yeah, but that's what editing's for, isn't it? Editing is where you kind of make it beautiful and flow, and actually you really have to. I hate editing because it's so kind of like, oh my God, I'm terrible. How did I write that? That's awful. It's really kind of painful to do. But actually, when you read back on it and you think, do you know what, I like that now. I like it. Didn't like it before, but I changed it and I made it better.
Yes. So with editing, do you wait till the very end to go back and start, or do you do it as you go?
Yes, I literally just have to get the story and get it done. I might go back and revisit a chapter if it's something that's particularly relevant to the chapter I'm on, and at the time I'll tweak it a little bit then. But in general, I like to get the whole thing down and done, and then go back and you just sit on it for a week or two and just bask in the glorious, I finished my book. Thank God for that. It's done. It's out of my brain. It's there. And then I go back and edit, and that can sometimes take, weeks. Well, it does take weeks.
Yes.
to do.
Awesome. Yeah. I love that.
How about you? What do you do? Am I unusual in that? Do people edit as they go along?
No, I've actually come across a few people that do, and I'm like, I can't do that because I call it word vomit, and like just get it all out. And then I'm like, okay, once the whole thing is down, I'm like, okay, then I'll go back and start going through things. Because I actually like my book I'm working on right now. I kind of burnt myself out. I don't know if I'm going to do another NaNoWriMo again after that. Because I
did that.
Awesome. Yes. Yay. And I got 55,000 words, I think. And I kind of was like, oh, the holidays hit and things just got crazy. But I've been slowly working on it again. I had to take a break from it. But I know it's super choppy and rough. So I'm like, I'm kind of dreading going back through and doing the editing process on that. But I know it's going to be totally worth it because it's always like, it's going to be a really thick book. So
yeah. Oh, that's good. Well done, you. Yay.
Thank you. And congrats on yours too. So
thanks. Yeah. Well, I have to confess, did you do a lot of plotting beforehand on that?
I did not. It kind of was like a rough outline, and I was just like went away with it because I'm more of a pantser than a plotter. I don't know. How are you on that? Do you plot out really hard?
I'm a what they call a plantster.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've recently taken to doing a little bit more work with just the characters beforehand. I read a brilliant book called Story Genius. I don't know if you heard of it.
I'll have to check it out.
And what I've been doing lately is working through that sort of process, if you like, of starting with the characters and the what ifs and what do they want. And in my head, I've got a rough idea of where they are at the beginning of the story and where they end of the story. But actually going right further back to discover kind of motivations and stuff like that. And then when you do it that way, a lot of it actually just evolves, which is really weird, really weird, weird process to happen. And it was good for me because I was tying it very specifically into certain events in history. So my third book, which is actually book 2, An Arctic Destiny, takes place in a very, very set, defined period of history. It's not just Tudors, it's 1553 to 1554. There's a reason for that, because a lot of historical change happened in those years that I wanted to bring out in the story, lesser known things. So because I had those 2 points of view, I had the character development and then the actual historical things that I really wanted to bring out, it just kind of flowed and it just made it so easy, actually. But with Risking Destiny, that was the first time I kind of plotted, really did a plotter. And I kind of didn't, it was okay. It got the job done, but I think I'm going to err more on the somewhere in between plants side from now on, having done both. Disrupting Destiny was just a pure kind of plantster, roughly knew where I was going with it, but everything else was very character driven, and what happened and the circumstances they found themselves in was a lot more free flowing, shall we say.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went the other way and went, oh no, I've really got to plot out this one, down to kind of scenes and sections that I wanted to write to get across certain points. And it was good. It was perfect for NaNoWriMo because it kept me focused, and it gave me, all right, this today I'm doing this, today I'm doing that scene. But yeah, I'm definitely more comfortable with the in-betweeny.
That's good. No, I like that. It's interesting. And I definitely am gonna have to check out that book too.
Toy Genius by
Yes.
Lisa Cron.
Okay.
Really
yeah.
interesting.
That is interesting. I'll have to write it down. So go ahead and tell our viewers where they can find you and your work.
You can find my work on the big Amazon, of course. Both the Natch Ray series is all on Amazon. Disrupting Destiny and Arctic Destiny in Kindle Unlimited. Risking Destiny, however, you can find at any good reseller, absolutely any good reseller whatsoever. Kobo, it's completely wide, so you can get your mitts on that pretty much at your favorite bookstore. You can also find an Arctic Destiny and Disrupting Destiny in physical bookstores. You'll need to probably ask, though, because they don't carry them as a standard piece of items yet, but they will. They will. I have faith that they will. I will be in bookstores one day, but you can at least order them from your Waterstones, your Barnes and Nobles, all that stuff, the usual places.
Awesome. And where can our readers and viewers find you on social media?
You can find my website, which is www.escapeintoatale.com. Escapism, escape into a tale. That's the plan. You can find me on social media at jan.foster.author on Facebook, Insta, TikTok, which I'm dabbling in, shall we say. Yeah, pretty much that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, Jan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to chat to you.